How many people want to work for the Office of the Digital Ambassador in Denmark? Yeah, there we go. UND people know. Everybody else is a fair game.
Thank you very much, Nika and Nikolai. It is fascinating to listen to you, what your vision is of Next Gen Gov. We believe we have another 5 or 10 minutes, and I'm sure many of you have questions to our distinguished speakers, so we'll take the questions from the floor.
There's no coffee if there's no questions, just so we're clear.
Morning, Simon Zadek, UNDP. Very, very interesting presentations. I guess the question is how we understand the tension between the legacy assets of Westphalian governance and new models of collaborative governance. We're not starting with a blank piece of paper. And your comment, which was, you know, we have to think beyond the state, but if Facebook messes up, we'll regulate them, kind of betrays where sort of the crunch point comes, which is we're not looking for substitutes, we're trying to understand the dynamic relationship between the two. You know, the most successful collaborative governance models in the world are the mafia. You know, there's no question about it at all. You know, the forces of evil have dominated cross-border collaborative governance models since the beginning of time. And so I'd love to get your takes on, you know, what do we have to do to governments in Westphalian systems to be able to be supportive, not resistant or destructive, to these cross-border collaborative governance innovations? Thank you.
Would you like to go ahead, or should we take 2 or 3 more questions?
Wow, there's lots of barriers for me to get to you with the microphone. Here we go.
Yeah, I have a small question. We were talking, thank you for very interesting presentation, and you were talking about mainly governance and technology. But are we also considering, and could you please elaborate on this more, transformation of the societies, because basically how the technology to be used for better, for good, it depends on the absorption capacity of the society, and how to make the societies more mature to be able to use these technologies for better than for bad, or things like that. Could you please elaborate on that a bit more? And I also think that going a little bit beyond the governance and technology, we need to consider the transforming global order, we need to consider the transforming institutions as per se, we need to consider the transforming societies and transforming global compacts, because this also affects these dynamics between technology and governance. Could you please elaborate on that more, based on your experience?
I think we go.
Okay, I'll start. If I understood your question correctly over here, it's about how do we exercise legitimate governance from the states without sort of stifling the innovation and all the good stuff coming out of private companies and so on with a global role. And I guess, I mean, that is the billion-dollar question. And I think there are different approaches to that. The fact that Denmark has taken this diplomacy initiative is that we actually think we need to, what we call sort of a light but right touch approach to regulation. And it's based on the fact that, you know, even though if we wanted to regulate very, very hard, it would be it wouldn't be able to keep up the pace with how technology develops. So I think we need to make some more flexible pieces of regulation. Sometimes the regulatory debate is a little bit black and white, if you ask me. It's either you're pro-regulation or you're against. I think we need new pieces of regulation as technology evolves. But I also think, and this is where I think, in my humble opinion, our initiative makes sense, is that we also need a better understanding in the governance side of what is happening in technology, and we need a better understanding in the tech sector around taking responsibility. I think there are things that the tech companies can do on a voluntary basis. I think we need, and that's why I put the value dimension out there. I think many of the big tech companies, they are also children of the global free market and the democratic societies that we have developed. So it's not enough anymore to just say we do no harm slogan. The digital transformation process is now at a stage where we need to expect more responsibility on a voluntary basis, also from the big tech companies, that which is proportional to the level of influence that they yield, but without, of course, stifling innovation. So, yeah.
If I may continue with the answer. Unfortunately, every time private sector is coming up with something new, government is trying to regulate it. And this is kind of a natural instinct of a government, that there is something new, I cannot understand it, let's regulate it. And it's not the answer. It's never is I don't believe that it's ever a good answer. I believe that to answer that question, quite difficult question, I believe, is there are a few stages. One is dialogue. And I don't believe that right now there is enough dialogue between private sector and governments, especially between high-tech tech companies and governments. There is not enough. I believe that there is a need of more understanding of, from private sector, what do governments want going forward, and from government, how do they operate, how tech companies operate. So that's number one. I believe number two is outsourcing. I think governments need to think more how to outsource their even dialogue with tech companies to the other private companies. There is more possibility and more opportunity for governments to do this type of job with the help of private sector. And finally, I believe that there are very good PPP formulas need to be found in order to move forward. So these are like three ideas that I could come up with on your very, very difficult answer. It's dialogue, it's outsourcing, and it's PPPs. And regarding your question, the answer is only one, it's education. It's more and more investment in education, in not only education of youngsters, but education of grown-ups, for them understanding more of how new technologies operate. And this is the only answer to that question, I believe. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay. Thank you so much. This was the almost last sentence before the coffee. Thank you. I think we think you have set really the stage for this next generation governance Istanbul Innovation Days. I would like to repeat one key point. You said the responsibility lies with governments, but the responsibility lies also with the companies. And finally, the people who need to understand what this is all about. And I think we, as the UN, together with partners, have a big task in making this happen. With that, we would like to invite you for the coffee break, which is served outside the room. Thank you.